So every week we share something new with you guys to be able to grow and build your business. You can watch the prior episodes of our tips of the week. We have probably several hundred of them out there now. This week we're focused on part of our real estate investor blueprint. So this is the blueprint that we use to start our business, and we created it after we had been investing for a while. And it goes through the 272 different things that we had learned in our business. I know it's an eye chart for those of you guys in the back, but what we're doing as part of this investor series is we're breaking down many of the elements to give you an idea of what we call an overview of real estate investing. So we're at the end of this overview, we're at the end of this series. If you want to catch up on this series, which I would recommend that you do, and specifically go through the marketing part of the presentation, that's where I want you to get started, because that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you can get information and be able to get leads and turn them into deals. So excited to be able to share that with you. So check out our Texas REIAs YouTube channel or our podcast to be able to learn more about that. So this is episode 14 in our overview of real estate investing, getting started in real estate investing. Again, check out our YouTube channel, our podcast, or wherever you guys get your information online. We're just about in every source out there to be able to see some of those prior tips of the week. Now, as we talk about education, there is a saying that I both love and hate, and that is that experience is the worst teacher out there, because experience gives you the test first and the lesson after. And most of you guys would probably like to get the lesson before you get the test, right? Because sometimes the test, and when it comes to real estate, and that lesson after can be a very expensive lesson. And I've seen as many people make money as real estate investors as I've seen lose money as real estate investors. And as owner, founder, president of Texas REIAs, I've had to unscramble a lot of eggs for many brand new investors who just got in over their head. And usually it starts with the wrong deal at the wrong price and the wrong repairs, and everything else can kind of go from there. So I want you guys to be able to get your experience from other people who have already been there, so you can walk in their footsteps and you don't have to try and create and blaze your own path, because you will probably get burned along that way. I like in real estate investing, it's that, you know, some people say, well, I've watched HGTV, like I think I've got this, you know, I've seen a few episodes, and they'll just get out there and try to, you know, take a swing at it. And sometimes I liken it to someone who says, I want to be the heavyweight champion of the world, decides it today, watches a few YouTube videos, and then goes to buy their first property, not knowing that they're getting in the ring with Mike Tyson, who might be biting their ear off tonight, right? So guys, I want to make sure that just like if you were going to be the heavyweight champion of the world, that you get your training in place for that in advance. Because either you pay for your education in the form of hiring a mentor or a coach, or you pay for your education through a bad deal or a bad experience. And I've had many investors come to me, and it's always heartbreaking when they say, I don't care if I make money on this, I just want the experience. And that literally, like, physically makes my stomach turn, because basically what you're saying is you're going to get yourself into a bad deal, you're going to overpay for it, and you're going to say, that's okay, I don't mind if I work 6 months or longer on this deal, I don't mind if I don't make any money. If you're already starting the deal with, I don't mind if I don't make any money, and you get a surprise from your contractor, you get a project surprise, the market changes, right? So people who were buying properties last year this time and were using comps from the fever pitch part of the year, May and June of 2022, when every single property was getting an above list price offer for, you know, thousands of dollars over and a quick closing. That's not the market that we are in right now. So I don't want you guys to get that experience yourself in the marketplace. And probably one of my favorite books is The Psychology of Money. Has anyone in here read that book, The Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel? That is a great book. So highly recommend it to you guys. One of the things that he said that has stuck with me is he said, plan for the plan not going according to plan, because things that have never happened before, well, they happen all the time, right? And have we seen that more than ever in real estate over even just the last 3 years? It's been a little bit of a roller coaster, both the exciting time where we got that big smile on our face, as well as the horrifying time, which is, and I'm not going to say it's been horrifying over the last year, but it's been tough over the last year because we've been in an interest rate environment that most people who are in this room probably have not lived through or have certainly not invested through. So I want to make sure that you are getting other people as your sounding board as you are investing in real estate. And I'll quote, I think this is Shakespeare, "A fool and his money are soon parted. A new investor and his or her money, in many cases, are soon parted." No one's gonna raise their hand to answer this, but I'm curious, how many of you guys are gonna be investing with your own cash? I know no one's gonna answer because everyone's like, "Don't follow me to the parking lot." So a couple of you guys did. So may I give you guys who are gonna be investing with your own cash some advice just right out of the gate? If you want some of the best free advice and free coaching that you will ever get in your life, it is, even if you have your own money to be able to do that first deal by yourself, run that deal by a hard money lender. And what are you going to say to that hard money lender? "Would you fund this deal?" And if they say no, what have they just given you? The answer that it's not a good deal. They've given you some of the best free advice that you should, and you should do what after they say no? You should go renegotiate. Because I want to make money every time the phone rings, and we'll share with you guys different ways to be able to do that as part of the meeting tonight. But either renegotiate or run away. So I will say there is something that I like to call the hard money decoder ring. The hard money decoder ring. Have you guys heard of that before? Yeah, let me give it to you. So when a hard money lender says, "I'll fund your deal, but I need you to bring $30,000 to the closing table," what have they just told you about your deal? It's a stinker. You might not make money, but if you bring $30,000 to the table, I'm assured to make money as the lender. Okay, so not everyone has that hard money decoder ring. I want to make sure all of you guys do, especially those of you guys who are planning on investing in your first deal with your own cash. So that's some experience that I don't want you guys to get by overpaying for a property, right? Because no deal is better than a bad deal. Now, when you're getting started, for many people, and I know you all have had this experience, you don't even know what questions to ask, right? There's this scale of competency, right? Where it's like unconsciously incompetent, right? Don't even know what you don't know. Consciously incompetent, like, "Oh wow, I learned a lot about what I don't know, and the amount of stuff that I don't know just expanded to me," right? Consciously competent, right? I've got this, but I still got to go back to the user's manual to make sure that I'm still doing this, right? And then unconsciously competent, where it's something you can do in your sleep. So, but until you get down that scale of competency, and in many cases that's just being in the market for long enough, or having someone looking over your shoulder saying, "Do this, don't do this," you may not be making some of the best decisions. So I highly recommend having someone look over your deals. The first person that can easily look over your deals, especially those of you guys who are funding your own deals yourself, is that hard money lender. There are a ton in this market here. In fact, in many cases, as part of this meeting, when the market is up, like I can't throw a tissue without hitting a hard money lender. But when the market is down, like I can't throw a baseball, or hit a home run and actually be able to hit a hard money lender. So they do come and go depending on what's happening in the market, but they're a great resource to be able to get a little analysis and brain picking on your deal. And then I'll also recommend something that my business coach taught me very early on, which is scenario analysis, which is breakpoint analysis, which is basically looking, for me, every time I do a deal, I have a spreadsheet that I've been using for the last 20 years, and it's best case, worst case, most likely case. So I want to look at changes in ARV, I want to look at changes in repairs, and I want to look at changes in how long I'm going to be holding that deal. Because I need that sensitivity analysis to know, like, what happens if the egg doesn't land sunny side up, right? What happens if we got an issue here? And what I find is that most new investors, what case analysis do they use? They use the best case. In fact, they use the best case on steroids, right? They use the highest ARV. They use the lowest repair cost. They use the shortest time to be able to repair that property. They use the lowest days on market. They don't understand that days on market does not include time to close, which adds another 30 to 45 days of holding costs for you. And of course, on their projects, nothing ever goes wrong, right? Listen, my renovation project came in on time and on budget. Who said that? That would be no one, ever. But what I find is that most investors expect that on their first deal. And most investors overpay on their first deal. And what is the last deal that you ever want to overpay on? That would be the first deal. So please, I want to make sure you guys do your scenario analysis, look at that sensitivity because it will make a difference. So some of the new investor psychology, again, since it's my first deal, I should be able to get the highest resale price that's ever happened in the neighborhood. That's literally the logic. And that is, and I don't know if it's a cognitive bias, but as a cognitive bias, and I think it gets heightened as you guys watch more HGTV. It's like, well, that idiot did it. I certainly can, right? So I will tell you as a tip, think like a bank. Think like a bank. What does that mean? What does that mean to you guys? Think like an appraiser. What does that mean to you guys? Sometimes I feel like a lot of new investors wear beer goggles. You guys know what, some of you guys know what I'm talking about, right? It's those goggles that you have on at 2 a.m. after you've been drinking a little too much, right? You see someone of the opposite sex on the other side of the room and you say, you look about my age. Don't ever use that as a pickup line. I just want to make sure you don't use that. But you're like, yeah, I'll take you home, right? New investors who are not looking at a lot of deals, to them, every deal looks what? Good. They forget to, they look past all of the red flags and yellow flags, right? They buy the houses with a yellow line in the middle of the street. What does that mean? They buy the houses with the commercial building in the back. And what do they think about it? Oh, no one's going to notice that. No one's going to care about that, right? They're just looking at inside the house and they're so excited they're ready to go. So instead, think like a bank, think like an appraiser. New investor psychology. Since it's my first deal, I shouldn't have any surprises on my project, right? There won't be any extra repairs or it won't result in extra time, right? Most new investors are 25% over budget on their first project. And most statistics, 87% of statistics are made up on the spot too. Just want to. In fact, I would say that it's probably 25 to 50% over budget, especially on those first deals because of those surprises and even because sometimes our contractor leaves us in a lurch. How many of you guys, besides me, have been in a situation where a contractor has taken off with your money? Yes. Okay, and those of you guys who are not raising your hands is because you're still holding on to your wallet because you're afraid he's going to come back, right? I mean, like this happens and it happens all the time. So make sure that you don't get hit with that. Make sure you don't give, a lot of brand new, a lot of contractors, especially in the market that we're in right now, where contractors are so incredibly busy. Their renovation estimate is very simple. It just says fix house. $60,000, have to now. That's what it says, because it takes about 2 to 3 hours to be able to build a line-by-line scope of work, right? So this is an easy one to get caught into. So I'll tell you guys, for every $10,000 that is part of your rehab budget, you should have at least a 1-page detailed 12-point font scope of work. For every $10,000 that you spend, your scope of work needs to be at least 1 page. So if you have an $80,000 scope of work, how many pages does our scope of work need to be? If you have an $80,000 renovation budget, how many pages does our scope of work need to be? I just want to do some basic math in here. You guys passed. That's awesome. Thank you. So want to make sure you guys are aware of that, and also want to make sure you guys are not accidentally paying someone all of their money up front, because that is the perfect recipe of something going incredibly wrong. Charlie Munger talks about it. It talks about incentives. Have any of you guys read Poor Charlie's Almanac? So Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's right-hand man for the last 40, 50 years. He's 90 years old. And Robert Cialdini, who wrote a book about influence, he actually gave Robert Cialdini one of the shares of Berkshire Hathaway after he read that book, because he realized that everything in life is about incentives. So make sure that those incentives are lined up for you as a new real estate investor and on your side. So since it's my first deal, my project's going to finish really fast, and I'll sell it as soon as it goes on market. Well, one of the things that we find, are you waiting for me for something? You need this back. There you go. I'm not going to tell you where that's been. So for every $5,000 in your rehab budget, expect 1 week of time. So I already told you, for every $10,000 you spend, you have to have at least 1-page scope of work. This is the other tip for you. For every $5,000 in your rehab budget, expect 1 week of time. So if your budget is $50,000, expect that you're going to spend 10 weeks on your project. Now, what I will tell you is your contractor is going to tell you, oh, no, this project, I'm going to have this wrapped up in 6 weeks. Okay, yes. All right, I'll file that in the back, right? And I know, and it's so funny. I had one contractor, and he was making an excuse for why he was behind on my project, and he said to me, and I quote, "Well, there was just a lot of rain." I'm like, rain? What is this? Is this some new weather phenomena that no one heretofore has ever heard of or could plan around, that there would be rain, right? Or one of these other things? Like, so sometimes they'll say stuff like that. So just know that this is my rule of thumb. It's been working for me for the last 20 years. Days on market. So some of you guys will read that number, the days on market number, and you'll think, oh, well, I'll put it on the market, and then 30 days later, right, it's going to sell. Well, if the days on market is 30 days, right, that's the day it goes under contract, okay? After that, it's time to sell. So the MLS only tracks that days on market. They don't track the time to sell, because if it's a cash buyer, how quickly can it close? Immediately, right? But if it's an FHA buyer, how long is it going to take to close? 45 days if you're lucky, right? So you need to be sure to include that as well. And I always recommend that investors look at months of inventory instead of days on market. And the reason why I suggest that is because months of inventory is kind of your worst case scenario, right? What if I'm the last person to get picked for the kickball team, right? This is that scenario. This is part of that scenario analysis, which basically says, if I'm the last person to sell of all of the other properties that are listed out here, this is how long I'm going to be holding on to that property. This should be part of your sensitivity analysis, your best, worst, and most likely case scenario analysis, so that you know how much it'll cost you if you are the last one to get picked by the buyer there. So sometimes I find that good judgment is suspended, and many new investors don't consider the impact of things like busy streets, awkward layouts, backing up to commercial. And what I tell people, and again, this is part of that investor beer goggle thing, right? It's like, it's the only deal, only deal in the bar. I'm going to go ahead and take that one. You have to think, in my opinion, you have to think like a family. So what is a family going to say if there's a yellow stripe in the middle of the road? They're going to think, this is a busy area. I'm afraid my kid's going to get what? Run over, right? So I don't care how good of a rehab that you did on the inside, I'm not even looking at that, right? If it's backing to commercial, and usually it's back to like a duplex or an apartment complex, it's always going to sell for less. Why? Because again, think like a family. I don't know if I want to be next to a bunch of people moving in and out all the time, right? You want your buyer pool to be as big as possible. If you are thinking like a family would think, then you're going to buy properties that have that larger buyer pool. Now, the truth is, for us as real estate investors, do we get the perfect house on the perfect cul-de-sac in the perfect neighborhood? No, we get the houses with the yellow stripes in the middle of the road, and they're busy and all these other things going on. Here's a saying that my coach taught me a long time ago. You guys probably know the answer. Every problem has a price. Is that true? A lot of people think, oh no, this problem, it has no solution, right? No, the solution is we got to lower the price. And if our buyer pool goes from this many buyers to this many buyers, do we need to lower the price to compensate for that? And the answer is yes. So I want you guys to think like that, and also think like a family is when you're using, if your subject property is on the busy street that backs to the apartment complex, and you're using a comp that's on the cul-de-sac, right, that's another 5 blocks away, I can promise you're not coming up with the right price for that property. So I want to make sure you stay safe out there. So final thoughts, spend time with other experienced, what we call full cycle investors who can answer your questions and ask the questions that maybe even you've not considered. That's why us as part of Texas REIAs can help you get the education that you need in order to be successful and really just not make mistakes. Because when you get in the ring without experience and you're getting your education from the streets, you will feel like what it's going to feel like to have somebody bite your ear off or punch you in the throat. It's not going to feel good, and I want to make sure you guys all have the best investing experience possible. So if that tip of the week was helpful to you guys, we have hundreds more on our Texas REIAs YouTube channel as well as our podcast. And then next week, we're going to be doing a top investor mistakes series. And sadly, this is a series that I've done before, and there's like 14 different categories of top investor mistakes. But I kind of want the motivational part of my presentation to end before that. That's a joke. I'll just give that a chance to sink in. So I'll probably make it a little shorter for next week, and then we'll also talk about getting past the front door for all of you guys who are thinking about door knocking. So if you want to binge watch and become the expert, join us and subscribe on our Texas REIAs podcast so that we can help you along that journey.